Hello everyone, it's Casey Vineyard here at Wonders of Wildlife National Museum and Aquarium. We are so excited to have you here as we launch our newest at-home mission through Mission Conservation, Freshwater Ecosystems. Throughout this month, you will get to meet multiple partners to learn about lakes, rivers, and streams, as well as the plants and animals that inhabit them. In order to play this really fun mission, all you have to do is log on to our mission conservation page at www.wondersofwildlife.org/mission-conservation. That there will bring you to our mission conservation webpage. On this website, I will bring your attention down to get the app. Once you click download, that will take you to download the Agents of Discovery app, which you will need to play any mission conservation mission. Once you have that app downloaded, create a user account and log in. Hit the search bar and type in Mission Conservation. This is where all of our at-home missions will pop up for you to play. Once you have the mission popped up and loaded, we are going to direct you down to another part of the website where it says Print Images. Click download and you have the option to either play with the trigger images pulled up on the screen with your mobile device, or you can even print them off, set them up outside or in a classroom, and play as if you were playing a virtual scavenger hunt. The last place that I'm going to bring your attention down to on this website is Schedule of Missions and Activities. This tab will show you all of the missions that we currently have live, including our current mission, Freshwater Ecosystems. Under this tab, you will also find our activity guide that we have specifically made for you at home. There will be a craft, an awesome outdoor activity, and something that you can do to promote conservation for freshwater ecosystems. The last thing that I want to show you on this tab is your mission reward. This is your prize that you get for completing the mission. If you click on mission reward, it will give you directions on how to download the Snapchat filter once the mission has been completed. So I'm currently standing here in our Under River Experience exhibit here at Wonders of Wildlife. This exhibit shows multiple species of fish, including walleye, a variety of species of bass, muskie, and even lake sturgeon. This here brings me to our amazing partner for this week. We are going to go all the way out to Boston to talk to our partner, Joel Morris from NOAA. She is here to talk about sturgeon. Joel, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Casey.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. What do you have for us?
Same here. I'm going to share my screen with you all, if you can see it. So today, again, thanks, Casey. My name is Joel Morris, and I am the coordinator for the Sturgeon Outreach Program here in Massachusetts called SCOOTS, and that stands for Students Collaborating to Undertake Tracking Efforts for Sturgeon. I know that's a mouthful, but it's a really exciting program. So I'm happy to share with you a little bit about how Atlantic sturgeon use freshwater and estuarine habitats in our neck of the woods. So let's get going. So I want to give you a rundown of Atlantic sturgeon and focus on some of the basics of this species so we can all be familiar with this amazing fish. Then I'll shift focus to the aquatic habitats that they use throughout their life and share a little bit about those habitats, as well as the important role that sturgeon play in ecosystems. And then I'll share a little bit more about scoots and some of the conservation efforts that we have going on at NOAA Fisheries. But first, did you know that sturgeon have been around for more than 120 million years? That means they were hanging out with the dinosaurs. And in all honesty, they haven't changed much in appearance since that time. So they're often referred to as living fossils. So essentially, you're looking at living dinosaurs. So when you're checking out this fish, a few things about their biology: they can get up to be 800 pounds. So imagine the size of a bear. They can also grow up to be 14 feet long, so the size of maybe a small car. So these fish, given the opportunity to live out their full lifespan, which is about 60 years, they can be pretty huge. Sturgeon are bottom feeders, so they're hanging out at the bottom of rivers and the estuary. They're feeding on different worms and shellfish and crustaceans out there. So Atlantic sturgeon, they were once abundant in every major coastal river along the Atlantic coast in North America. Again, right now I'm in Massachusetts, so the river closest to me is the Merrimack River, and we do have short nose and Atlantic sturgeon in the Merrimack. Again, they are benthic omnivores, so they eat plants and other creatures, so worms, insects, crustaceans, mollusks, and even other fishes. But people are historically their biggest known predator. So many Native American tribes once harvested sturgeon for their meat, and fishermen or settlers, once they came to America, what happened was there was what's known as the American caviar rush. So once fishermen knew that they can harvest sturgeon for their eggs, which were used to salt and pack in tin cans such as these, they were caviar. And caviar is a delicacy in some parts of the globe. So this is what it looks like. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to do a little activity really quickly. So I'm going to hold up this caviar tin, and this is about 50 grams of caviar. And I want you to just take a few moments and give me a good guess, your best guess at how much this can of caviar would be worth. Give you about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, 50 grams is about a little bit over $100. And one more, there's no label, but this would be 500 grams of caviar. So if the 50 grams was 100, this one would be going over for a little bit over $1,000. So again, I'm going to share my screen with you. You can see the incentive for fishermen to go out and head to the docks or on their boat to go fish for sturgeon because it was very lucrative. But with that, one moment. With that, overfishing occurred. So if you can look at this graph, it shows you the year coordinating to how many pounds of sturgeon were harvested for that year. And basically what happened was that the sturgeon population in the wild, it crashed because of overfishing. So with sturgeon, the population's crashing, they're now listed under the Endangered Species Act. That means that we don't really get to see them out in their natural habitats. But take a look, you can see these are very cool looking fish, not fast, but very unique in their appearance. Again, these are living fossils. And I'll share a little bit more about how they look when this video finishes. Okay, so you can get a sense of what they look like, and if you were paying attention to under the mouth, you can see that their mouth is pretty unique. It's called a protrusible mouth. So it's situated on the underside of their body. So as they're cruising along the bottom of the river, they're using their mouth as almost like a little vacuum and just sucking up the crabs and the clams or whatever else that's tasty to them. And they spit out the rocks. So almost like essentially a little bottom vacuum. But there are also what are known as barbels, and there are 4 barbels situated between the mouth and the tip of their snout. And they use these almost like little whiskers to detect food in between the rocks and as they're rooting through the sand. Sturgeon are toothless, so they don't bite. But again, they're very unique in their morphology and how they look. You should have also noticed that they have a thick, tough skin that's covered in 5 rows of what are called scutes. These are bony plates that the fish use as protection from predators. So some of those smaller fish that have bigger fish out there that would chomp on them, those fish get a mouthful of scutes if they were to get a hold of a sturgeon. So shifting focus just a little, let's talk about where sturgeon are. They use unique habitats throughout their life cycle. They're found in the river, which has low salinity water, so no salt in that water. But rivers also have a lot of hard bottom substrates like rock, cobble, gravel. And again, there are lots of tasty items for the sturgeon to feed on in those fresh waters of the river. But again, sturgeon do make migrations out to the marine environments, but before they get to that salt water in the, off the coast, they're in the estuary, and that's essentially where the river, that fresh water, meets the salt water. So there are lots of nutrients in the estuary, and so there's basically a gradual downstream salinity gradient from that fresh water. It gets saltier and saltier the closer to the coast that the fish migrate. And the estuarine environments have a lot of soft bottom substrates, so sand and mud would be found in estuaries. In marine waters, that's salt water. So think of the beach, and sturgeon, they hang out on the continental shelf. So they won't be found in the deep open ocean. So they're in relatively shallow water compared to far off coast. So saying that, as sturgeon move from the freshwater to the saltwater environments, they're anadromous. And what this means is that they make migrations from the ocean into coastal estuaries and into rivers to spawn. So sturgeon are like sea turtles in that they return to their natal river. So the same river that they were born in, they return there to spawn. So take the Merrimack River, as you can see here. Sturgeon will migrate from the Atlantic all the way up to the Essex Dam to lay their eggs. Then they'll turn right back around after spawning is complete and head back offshore. So just a recap again, sturgeon were found along the Atlantic coast from Canada all the way down to Florida. And they use these estuaries for foraging grounds and also rearing grounds for juveniles. So when sturgeon are first born, they don't have a tolerance for that salt water. So the young need to stay in those freshwater habitats until their body can adapt to more saline environments. So as I said before, they travel to their natal river for spawning. Sturgeon do not spawn every year. For females, it might be every 3 to 4 years, and males, maybe 2 to 5 years. So again, timing is always, at the forefront of sturgeon as they try to reproduce. So that spawning ground, again, is found above the salt wedge. So it's going to be in fresh water, and it's usually, spawning habitats are usually where there are areas of hard bottom substrate, so lots of gravel and rocks, because those eggs are sticky. And once the mom sturgeon excretes her eggs, they will float down to the bottom and stick to the rocks and wait there to be fertilized once dad sturgeon comes. So again, let's talk about habitat, freshwater and estuarine habitats, because these are pretty significant to increasing population size and making sure that there's cozy environments for the young. So these natal riverine estuarine habitats are essential to the Atlantic sturgeon life cycle. There's lots of tasty things for the tiny sturgeon juveniles to eat. Also thermal refuges. So in the summers or in the fall, the temperature is right not only for spawning, but also it's comfortable for those young sturgeon to survive. And salinity refuges. So again, that freshwater environment is where those tiny sturgeon want to be. So immature sturgeon, again, they can't survive in salt water just yet. And those areas are protected areas that are, integral to them growing before they make their migrations off the continental shelf. So just to get a visual of what those eggs look like, you can see here, this is what the eggs look like. And after 3 days, they become larvae. After 30 days, you can see they start to look a little bit more like sturgeon. And after 60 days, they're what are known as fry. And after 1 year, these are the juveniles. So after some years, they become adults, and that cycle starts all over as spawning carries on. Why do we need to protect sturgeon? Why are they important? I get this question often because they're on the endangered species list. So there's not a fishery for sturgeon, but again, sturgeon have really long life cycles. They can live up to be 60 years. So they're late maturing. It takes a really long time for sturgeons to reach sexual maturity. And there are long intervals between when they spawn. So again, population crashes and anything to disturb the population, it has a significant impact on sturgeon population. But sturgeon themselves are valuable indicators of river health. So where you see Atlantic sturgeon or even short-nosed sturgeon, it's a pretty good indication that that river is a good, healthy environment for sturgeon to survive and thrive. So this can give a lot of information as far as habitat ecology and even changes in hydrology as we're looking at climate change and other things that impact these aquatic ecosystems. So saying that, why we should protect them? Well, they're significant species. Again, we have Scoots, which is a sturgeon outreach program that I coordinate for NOAA Fisheries. Scoots definitely is a collaborative effort. So we have sturgeon researchers. We're getting the best available scientific data on sturgeon. We're also working with formal and informal educators to spread the good news about this species and why they are important. And you, the public, and even students have, an important role in getting information out and being knowledgeable and informed about sturgeon as well as these freshwater ecosystems. So Scoot students collaborating to undertake tracking efforts for sturgeon, it's a team effort. I wanted to share a little bit about the type of research and work that goes on in the water and on the water to help sturgeon in this effort. So you can see pictured here is Micah Kiefer, and he is a sturgeon researcher for the USGS, and he was gracious enough to allow us to tag along on some of his sturgeon research trips. So what he's doing here, you can see in the net that he actually has a sturgeon there, and he's doing almost what looks like a little shoreside surgery, and that's exactly what he's doing. So when we go out and on these research trips for sturgeon, we have some good days, but we also have some bad days because sturgeon are still hanging out there under the ice, and they're in these environments at all times of the year. So we use some pretty cool equipment to, track where they are, the depth, the water conditions, and where we are out on the water. Maybe not so high-tech equipment with the trash barrels and the nets you can see pictured there. But these are what are called gill nets. So as sturgeon are swimming along, they get stuck in gill nets, and the size of the holes in the nets are specific to the size of sturgeon that is being targeted for that research trip. So with the gill nets, we don't always catch sturgeon. You can see here, there's some debris, there's some crabs, lots of worms and other things that are out there. But once we get a sturgeon in the net, it's gently pulled onto the boat, and the net is taken off so that we can make our observations that we need to assess that sturgeon. And I'll show you one other thing. This is a pretty cool device that Micah constructed to make sure that the sturgeon is comfortable as we're getting the data on it. So it almost looks like trash cans that have been taped together. It's a little bit more technical than that, but essentially it's a holding pin for the fish so that it doesn't, it's not out of the water for too long. We definitely don't want to stress the fish or cause any harm. But what happens after we catch them? Well, we collect data. We get length, weight, we determine the sex of the fish. We find out whether or not there are eggs in the fish. So that's important as we try for recovery, species recovery. And we take tissue samples for genetics and figure out whether or not there are tags in the fish. And I'll talk about tags in just a second. So taking the weight is pretty, it can be challenging on a boat because we don't have a scale, the boat might be rocking, but we definitely get as accurate of data as we can. We take fin clips and determine the gender. You can see here a little clip of the fin is taken and sent to the lab for analysis. So each river, remember I said sturgeon go back to the river that they were born in, that makes the genetics unique to different rivers. And that way we can see how many sturgeon are present in different rivers and where they're coming from when they are caught. So we check for injuries. You can see this little guy here unfortunately has what looks like a rubber band, or maybe even one of those holders from sodas around his neck. So definitely hate to see that. But we check for pit tags, and these tags, each one has a unique identifying number. And so Micah and other sturgeon researchers check sturgeon to see if it's already been tagged, and if it hasn't, sometimes a tag will be placed so that the next time that fish is caught in a gill net or even caught as bycatch, it can be scanned, and we can keep track of that information. So implanting the tags, again, in the picture I showed earlier, Micah was on side of the boat and doing basically implantation of an acoustic tag after making an incision. So he was, in fact, doing a little shoreside surgery. But we have other types of tags, which are external tags that go onto the scoots. So, but primarily we use the internal tags because they aren't as invasive. The sturgeon don't get caught on other things out in the water. But what these pit tags do is, as the sturgeon swim past, where you can see pictured here a receiver, they can be put onto buoys, they can be put onto large rocks so they float to the bottom. But as sturgeon swim past these receivers that are strategically placed throughout the rivers, they swim past them and they create a pinging sound. And as that pinging sound occurs, it's recording data like the time, the day, the water conditions, and that unique identifier so we know which sturgeon it is. And we can track where that sturgeon is and where it has been. So we're tracking those migratory patterns of fish. You can see here, and sometimes they make long trips along the coast. So it's really cool to be able to see when and where they are at different points. Okay. So just to give a brief recap, sturgeon are anadromous, and they are a migratory fish species, meaning they go from the ocean to the coastal estuaries and rivers to spawn. They are listed under the Endangered Species Act because of overfishing, and even some more contemporary issues like vessel strikes, habitat loss, and basically things that are endangering their ability to have long lives. But they're valuable indicators of ecosystem health. So we want them around. We want to know that our rivers and estuaries are healthy. So that's all I have, but I appreciate you for listening. If you have any questions or want to know more about Atlantic sturgeon or short-nosed sturgeon or the Scoots program, please visit us at our NOAA website to learn more about Scoots, and check us out on Facebook. We have a Facebook page for Scoots, and if you're interested in getting one of the cool tackle box stickers you see pictured here, please shoot us a private message and I'm happy to get you one. And you can have a cool tackle box sticker for your tackle box or for your water bottle, either way. And that's all. Thanks, Casey.
So I did have a question. Some of us at home are asking, what does NOAA stand for?
Oh yeah, that's another mouthful. So National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, N-O-A-A.
Thank you so much for that. So another question that I came across was, are sturgeon kind of related to salmon, or do they have the same characteristics of salmon?
Right, so it's a totally different species, but some of the characteristic, they're both migratory fish. So again, they spend part of their life in freshwater, part of their life in saltwater. And again, salmon, just like sturgeon, are valuable indicators of riverine and ecosystem health.
you. So since they are kind of similar, do sturgeon go through the same smoltification process as salmon?
Well, similar. So some salmon, they're terminal in their life cycle where they won't make it after that breeding season. But sturgeon, they go drop their eggs and then they head on and, hopefully they make it back for another season of spawning.
That's all that I have for you. Thank you so much, Jovan. We loved having you as a partner today. Thank you for talking about these prehistoric fish that we call sturgeons.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't forget to look up their Scoots outreach program. So that is all the time that we have for you today. But before we go, I wanted to share an opportunity with you to get involved with freshwater ecosystems. So another great way to participate in conservation awareness this month is the Fish Art Contest. Wonders of Wildlife is the Missouri host for the Wildlife Forever Fish Art Contest. Another mouthful here. The contest is a great way to introduce young people to the wonders of fish, the joy of fishing, and the importance of aquatic conservation. The Fish Art Contest uses art, science, and creative writing to foster connections to the outdoors and inspire the next generation of stewards. To compete, participants will submit an entry consisting of a completed entry form, an original illustration of fish from the official fish list, and a one-page creative writing submission. The 2021 contest deadline is March 31st, 2021. So there's still plenty of time for you to submit those. So for more information, check out our website at wondersofwildlife.org/education/fish-art-contest/. Well, that is all the time that I have for you this live stream, but we will see you next Tuesday as we continue to talk about freshwater ecosystems. It's going to be a little bit earlier next week at 11:30 Central Time. With us, we will have our partner from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Don't forget to tune in, and remember, we all live downstream. See you then.